This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in colour, it's Mr. Wayne Lovejuice.
The other day I produced a Louis, had a chat with an interesting chappie who said that the YouTube algorithms really aren't that happy. If a channel only broadcasts once a week, so we decided we could text ya whenever we've got a piece of news in our new book on the track extra. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and this is my little cat Lilith, and that is my little cat Squeaky. She's called Squeaky because when she was a little girl, a tiny little kitten who was rescued from a hedgerow somewhere in a heathland, she couldn't meow and all she did was squeak. Unfortunately, although I named her Squeaky, I'd forgotten that Squeaky was also the name of one of the more notorious members of the Manson family. And my dear sweet late wife refused to have a cat named after a kill-crazy cultist in her house, so I quickly changed her name from Squeaky to Squeaky Biscuit, which made everybody happy except for her, because I think she probably rather likes the idea of being named after a outlaw from mainstream society. On the Track Extra is a show which comes out every Wednesday evening at 6:30. It's an adjunct to our main show, which comes out on Saturday afternoons at 3 o'clock for about half an hour, and is a mélange, a mixture, a mishmash, a montage, and a mix, and all sorts of other things beginning with M, of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. What's surreality? Well, if having a cat named after one of the Manson family isn't surreal enough for you, copulate with this.
Charlie says, in my mind's eye, I can see fires in your city.
But that's enough of my cat, who may or may not want to be the disciple of a well-known serial killer, even though some of us think he was probably very much misjudged. Today is a complete change to what we originally advertised. The show that me and V. McQuinnan put together about tortoises and turtles and all sorts of other things beginning with T, or the testudini anyway, is going to be out next week, because this week we have something special for you. Last week the daily newspapers and all the news sites online were very excited when they could produce a story that somebody had found what they believed was a Bigfoot print on a coast path near Torbay in South Devon. Well, I know that coast path. I know the woods that adjoin the coast path, where whatever it was who made the footprint would have come in and out of. And why do I know them? Because I visited them nearly 30 years ago during an investigation into a series of sightings of a huge monkey with a green face seen swinging through the trees at a place called Churston Ferrers. These sightings only lasted that one summer, but as my wife had left me only a few weeks before, it was good for me to get out and actually do something that was constructive and that wasn't going to end in the divorce courts. Are there other stories of Bigfoot-like creatures in South Devon? Well, there are. Some are more believable than others. At least one was made up by a friend of mine for a slightly scurrilous novel featuring me and Richard Freeman, and others have the journey. This week I'm very pleased to introduce you to the man of the moment, in cryptozoological terms at least, Mr. Iggy Austin. So, tell me, what happened last weekend? Was it last weekend?
It was Saturday, yeah. Just gone. I was out with the co-steering group. We set off about just after 1 o'clock. Kitted up about 1 o'clock. I had a small group with me. I think 6 people, and we went down. Did the usual route: climbing, bouldering, jumping in, belly flopping, and mucking around, telling jokes, and giving them about a history about the geology of the area and all that stuff. And gradually built up to some higher jumps, and then we spotted porpoise, and we kind of sat down and had hot chocolate on the rocks and watched the porpoise swimming up and down, and the seals interacting with the porpoise, and that was quite. I've never seen that before, so that was really cool to watch.
I hope you filmed it.
I had a GoPro, but with the GoPro, it's no good for filming stuff that's 50 yards away. It's all close up stuff, so I filmed it with my eyes, and I'll remember it that way.
It'll stay with you forever, so
It will. So that was really cool. And then, the clients were just blown away by that. And then we made our way up through one of the exit routes that comes up through like a really old forest that's been there since the last ice age. Just to give a little bit of context, we're on the edge of a UNESCO World Heritage Geopark. So it's an ancient 400 million year old limestone and Permian sandstone rock formation that's been recognized as one of the most important sites globally. There's only 9, I think, in Britain, 9 geoparks in Britain. So it's an amazing area, and we're right on the edge of it. And this is quite a large wilderness between us and Torquay. There's 5 miles of kind of forest, unexplored wilderness that no one really goes into. You've got the coast path that kind of cuts through, but no one really goes off the path and into the kind of wilderness and the forest and the thick undergrowth. But our exit route meanders up through this really nice piece, and then we stop and we talk about the kind of smuggling history, and I tell them all about how the wood has evolved from the last ice age when the ice retreated, which always goes down really nicely. Then we came up, joined the Southwest Coast Path, just at the edge of Watcombe Woods, and then we're going along the path, and that's when we start spotting these prints in the mud, just going up the coast path.
How big were they? It's difficult to tell from the photograph.
Yeah, I should have put something down for scale, really, shouldn't I? Well, mine's the size 11, and I was kind of stepping next to them, and it was my foot, half of my foot again. So I don't know how big that would be. I'm not an expert on shoe sizes, but
neither am I. But I can imagine.
Size 11 is, not small, not a small foot, but not a huge foot. And they were kind of half the size again. So
I'm size 12, so I can get where you're coming from.
Yeah. So pretty big, and they didn't go all the way along the path. They just kind of came out of the woods, almost where we came out, where there's kind of like bend in the path, went along the coast path, and then when there was another junction, they kind of appeared to turn and go kind of over the hedge and back into the forest.
How many were? I mean, how over what sort of distance did these footprints last?
I'm estimating 20 meters, 25 meters, just 20 meters, about 20 meters. So they went along the coast path and there's a field on the right hand side. So, you know, whatever made the prints obviously come out of the woods, what gone along kind of realized that they were in a more open area, perhaps, felt exposed, and then dipped back into the forest.
Have you seen footprints or anything peculiar along that path before?
Not there. I've seen otter prints down on the beaches. So when you climb down to the beaches, you know it's pristine sand. No one's ever been there. So I'm always fascinated to see what's been there before me. And you see all sorts of fox prints and different seabirds and things like that. And I saw some otter prints the other day, which was nice. But I've never seen anything like that before. Not like giant human prints.
Whenever I see otter prints on a beach, you always see piles of disemboweled crabs that they've obviously made a meal of.
Yeah. I've not seen one in the wild here, so I'm quite excited if they are around to try and. But I might put out some of those cameras that you can put out that. Have you ever used the ones that trigger themselves? What are they called? Camera traps.
Trail cameras. Yeah, I got an otter a few years ago. There hadn't been an otter seen in the village I live since the 70s. I heard that one being run over in the 70s, back when I was a boy, and we got one on a camera trap where nobody ever knew there were otters at all. And a tiny little stream's far too small to have fish in it. So what it was doing following the stream, I don't know.
Oh, they probably go looking for ponds, don't they? People's garden ponds.
This was about 3 miles from the nearest house. So
right, weird. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to get some camera traps and put them down on certain sections that are of interest to me. Not looking for the otter, but looking for anything else.
Have you heard of stories of giant people, of whether they're covered in hair or not, living in the Torbay area?
I never have. I've obviously now read up a little bit about the other sightings that were in Torbay, which you mentioned as well. At was it Churston Woods? Did you get
Churston Ferries in 1996?
That was a long time ago.
I went and spent this was before I could afford camera traps, which were stupid expensive in those days. But I went with a colleague and we nosed around the woods for a few days, but didn't get anything.
Nothing. It's weird because there was a lot of people who saw that weird blue-faced hairy thing.
Now, you've heard of it as blue. I'd heard of it as green.
Oh, green. Sorry, I think that's just my brain.
Well, the interesting thing about that is there are monkeys with blue and green faces.
There are, yeah, and there's a zoo.
But they're not that size. They're not that size, and they don't swing through trees.
Right. Which monkeys are they?
Well, there is a green vervet monkey.
Right.
And there's a colour variant of both mandrills and drills, which have bright blue stripes on their faces and on their bottoms, and there's a colour variant of that, which I think is partial leucism, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Which does produce a green face. But mandrills and drills are baboons. They're not particularly good at climbing. They're certainly not swinging through trees.
No. From the reports, the bit I read said it was swimming through the trees with agility.
Which makes it sound like a gibbon or a orangutan, neither of which could survive for any length of time in a British woodland, even in summer, and none have green faces.
Did you check with the zoo that they weren't missing any animals at the time?
Yes, I did, and they weren't. Although I thought at the time, if Paynton Zoo had somehow mislaid a monkey, I'd be damned to tell anybody.
No, not if it came back.
Yes, and even if it didn't, I would carefully not tell anybody, because that would mean your license would be taken away.
Probably, yeah. So they'd probably cover it up, wouldn't they?
Yeah, well, I'm damn sure I would if I was in that position.
Mm.
So there are weird things about.
Yeah. Loads of stuff on the internet about giant beings on top of mountains. Have you seen these ones?
Yes, I haven't seen them personally. I mean, the one I saw was in woods at a place called Bolam Lake, which is a country park about 40
Yeah.
miles north of Newcastle.
Was that a large being or was that a small being?
It was tall and thin and running incredibly fast.
Right.
And there were 5 of us watching, and only
Right.
3 of us saw it.
And what, sorry?
And only 3 of us saw it. Let
Oh,
us
really?
get down. Which is, again, it's one of those things that fascinates me, is the way that 2 people can be standing
Hmm.
somewhere and they'll both see totally different things.
Yeah. That is
There
weird.
is,
Did you all describe the same thing, the ones that did see it?
yes. And the weirdest
Identical.
thing was, the weirdest thing was immediately after seeing it,
Hmm.
my body was completely flushed with endorphins.
Right.
And at various times in my life, I've been in hospital. I know what morphine does to you, and it was like somebody had injected me with a massive, massive dose of morphine, and I felt like that for about 2.5 days.
Right. What do you attribute that to?
Somehow, the experience of seeing this thing affected my endocrine system. How, why, and what it did, I don't know.
That is weird, isn't it?
That's why
Because
I think this stuff is real. It's just we don't know what it is. We then talked esoteric stuff for about 20 more minutes, but it wasn't really relevant to anything that we have shown you so far on this show, so I'm not going to subject you all to it. However, Iggy, like me, is one of those men who has had various strange encounters in his life. I have seen ghosts since the age of 4. I've seen UFOs on and off since the age of 10. And as far as cryptozoology is concerned, I've seen 2 mystery cats, the beast of Bolam Lake, and whatever the hell it was that I saw Doc Shields conjure up in that lake in the west of Ireland back in 2009. And Iggy has had similar experiences. He's seen UFOs, he's found a giant octopus 7 foot across. That's the large end of the size range for the European common octopus. I'm not claiming that he saw the same thing that washed up on that beach in Florida all those years ago, or that people say is lurking in the blue holes in the Caribbean. But he has had a string of strange things happen to him, and this is the most recent. There are some people, like me, like Iggy, who seem to attract Fortean phenomena. Why we do, how we do, and what it's all for, I have no idea. Iggy has promised that he'll come back on the show if he has any more further news, and I'm going to hold him to that. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back on Saturday, and I'll be back next Wednesday. Saturday, we are talking to Ronan Coughlin about the Dovahue, and next Wednesday, we're talking about mystery testudines. But until then, I've only got one thing I want to do. I want you to see this video. which is a fundraising video for our old friend Lars Thomas, who's seriously ill at the moment. So, until then. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's John Downs. I'm the director of an organisation called the Centre for Fortean Zoology, which is the largest mystery animal research group in the English-speaking world, and we like to think the best. We've been going now for over 30 years, and in those 3 decades we have sometimes carried out campaigns to try to raise money for equipment or for expedition expenses. But one thing we never do is to raise money for ourselves, because money is nowhere near as important as the search for expanding the boundaries of human knowledge, which is, at the risk of sounding horribly self-important, what this organisation is all about. However, we are a family in a very real sense, and there have been times over the years that we have made appeals to raise money for members of the CFZ family who are down on their luck. And this time I want to tell you about my friend Lars Thomas. He was one of the earliest members of the Centre for Fortean Zoology back when, in 1994, we started publishing our magazine, Animals and Men. And I have known him therefore for 30 years this year, which seems to be a remarkable length of time. He has recently become very ill, and he's in a hospital, partially paralysed and not able to work or indeed do anything very much. And so Richard Freeman phoned me the other night and suggested that we do a crowdfunding exercise to try and raise some money for him while he is in such a dire straits. And so I had a word with Miss Guinevere, and she went and set it all up. And you can read all about the appeal here at this link. What I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that Lars is a very nice, sweet and kind man who's been very kind and generous to all of us over the years, and it's about time, I think, that the CFZ paid something back. Please dig deep in your pockets and do whatever you can to support this very worthwhile appeal.